Hey guys, this is Dan from Let's Tank, and today we're going to be looking at the Protection Warrior on the BFA beta. Now, gameplay wise, currently the Protection Warrior feels a little bit slow on the BFA beta, but that's like a lot of the other tank classes. I wouldn't worry about it too much, as they're pretty much playing exactly the same. The only real thing you're going to feel that's a little bit slower is how threat's generated now, as you'll be getting threat from taking damage and from doing auto attacks. Now, from taking damage, you're going to get, I think it's 3 rage, and auto attacks, you're going to generate 2 rage, and then obviously you're going to be getting rage from your shield slam, your intercept, and your thunderclap. However, you don't generate any rage while being attacked if you dodge or parry the ability. You've got to actually take the damage to actually generate that rage. And this is probably where the first tweak that Blizzard could make to the Warrior comes in. I feel personally that if you dodge or parry the ability, this should be rewarded rather than punished. And you should probably get bonus rage, maybe double it to like 6 instead of having just that baseline 3. But anyway, let's carry on. So as I said, rage is pretty slow and it does slow the gameplay down. But another problem with the gameplay currently is that Ignore Pain is on the GCD and it's not very beneficial to use it at the moment, as it doesn't really absorb too much damage and the talents in your talent tree don't really buff it too much at the moment. So this is a big problem with the class currently, is Ignore Pain doesn't feel rewarding. And Blizzard have probably done this for a few reasons, mainly because of the magic damage reduction on all the tanks. They're trying to like remove it or really weaken it on all the tanks. And if you put Ignore Pain really OP and give it a big absorb, it would make the Warrior class really overpowered compared to the other tanks on magic damage fights. So that's probably why Ignore Pain's so weak at the moment. But it definitely does need tweaking and probably needs to be taken back off the GCD just to make it a little bit more beneficial to use, especially in this weak state that it's currently in. Now, apart from that, there's been a few other changes to the Protection Warrior. Battle Cry has now been replaced with Avatar, so Avatar's now baseline and you don't have to talent into it. Intimidating Shout has been brought back, so that can be very handy in dungeon scenarios. Shockwave is now baseline and you don't have to put any talent points into it. We now have a new passive called Vanguard, which will increase our stamina by 35% and armor by 40%. Inspiring Presence has been totally removed, you can't talent into it and it's not baseline, which is a pretty big nerf, to be honest. A lot of prop warriors that do raiding would take Inspiring Presence, as it gives the raid quite a lot of healing overall. But yeah, it's not the biggest nerf ever or detrimental change to Protection Warrior, but it's a shame they didn't just make this a baseline talent and keep it from Legion, to actually keep something new from Legion and bring it over into BFA. But like I said, it's not the biggest thing ever, so don't worry about this too much. Rallying Cry has now been brought back. Obviously we didn't have it in Legion, but this is a pretty cool rage utility that we actually bring to the raid now. And we also bring Battle Shout, which is great for obviously dungeons if you're missing that buff. So next we have Demo Shouts now on a 45-second CD, however it is on the GCD. Shield Block's been slightly nerfed, it's gone from 13 seconds to 18-second cooldown. Spell Reflect has gone from 50% magic DR to 15% magic DR, which is a pretty big nerf. But obviously this has been brought in to bring it in line with the other tanks' magic damage reduction abilities. And obviously, like I said, in all my other tank videos, all the artifact stuff is gone, but the Warrior one weren't too great anyway, so not too big of a deal. So now let's have a look at the talents. And in tier 1 you'll notice Into the Fray has been put on there and it's been buffed, as it now not only is affected by enemies, but is also affected by allies, which makes this an extremely strong talent, as you're pretty much always going to have at least one ally, if not 2, within your range. And if you're in a raid setting, obviously you're going to have a few melee in there, so if you're on a single target boss, this isn't going to be a rubbish talent like it is now. It's going to be a really strong talent, as you're going to have a couple melee with you as well as an off tank, which will easily get this talent capped. And also in tier 1 we also have the new talent, which is called Punish. And this is a passive ability, and what it's going to do, it's going to increase Shield Slam's damage by 20% and reduce enemies' damage against you by 3% for 9 seconds. This effect does not stack, it's just a flat 3% DR. So another strong talent, but you're probably going to want to go Into the Fray on this tier, as Impending Victory, it's okay, but it's not the best. So tier 2 brings around Crackling Thunder, Bounding Stride and Safeguard. Obviously these are all returning talents. Depending on how the fight is and what you're currently doing, Crackling Thunder and Bounding Stride are probably your best bets here, but Safeguard can also be very handy in raid situations. In tier 3, you've got Best Served Cold, which is a returning talent. Then got Unstoppable Force, which is a new talent, and it's a passive. And what this is going to do, it's going to buff Avatar, and whenever Avatar is active, it's going to increase the damage of your Thunderclap by 100% and reduce its cooldown by 50%. So it just makes Avatar a lot more stronger. And the other talent's the new talent, which is called Dragon Roar, and this is a casted ability, and it's instant with a 35-second cooldown. And basically, it's going to hit all enemies within a 12-yard range, dealing 4k physical damage, and it reduces all the movement speed by enemies hit by 50% for 6 seconds. It also generates 10 rage. So it's a decent talent, but I'd probably go Unstoppable Force on this, unless you want to add some extra kiting or some rage kiting to your dungeons, or for some reason you need to pick up this talent for another type of situation that could occur, like you need a burst of AoE, say in a raid boss or something like that. But probably Unstoppable Force is the strongest talent here. So in tier 4, we have Indomitable, which has been nerfed, and it now increases maximum health by 10%. This is a pretty big nerf, as before it increased your Ignore Pain as well, and it increase your maximum health by a lot more than 10%. So it's still a semi-decent talent if you do need that little bit more effective health, but there's other talents on this which are a lot stronger. The next talent's Never Surrender, which is pretty much the same. It's not very strong, as Ignore Pain is not too great at the moment. And the final one on this is Bolster. Now this got changed. It was at first a skill which will like increase your armor, but they changed it now to a passive. And what it's going to now do is Last Stand's cooldown is reduced by 60 seconds, and in addition to this, it's going to cause you to block all melee attacks. Now this is an extremely strong talent. Not only does it reduce the cooldown of Last Stand, but it makes you block all melee attacks. So this, talented with things like Booming Voice and Anger Management, is going to be a really strong combo for the Protection Warrior. Tier 5 we have Menace, which is going to make Intimidating Shout disorientate enemies for an additional 4 seconds, and it also makes them cower in fear rather than running around. Rumbling Earth's a really strong talent, and it's a passive which will buff Shockwave, and whenever Shockwave strikes 3 targets, its cooldown is reduced by 10 seconds. And Stormbolt is a skill. Once again, it's just a single target stun, which is going to last for 4 seconds. So for the most part, you're probably going to want to take Rumbling Earth, especially in dungeons. Now for tier 6, we have Booming Voice, Vengeance, and Devastator. Now, Booming Voice and Devastator have received a slight nerf. Booming Voice nerf is just increases damage dealt to the affected targets by 15%, while Devastator's is a little bit bigger and you no longer gain rage from the attacks you do with Devastator. So for picking talents on this tier, you're probably going to go between Booming Voice or Devastator. However, you'll have a lot of filler in your rotation, so you'll be able to get Devastates off and stuff, so Booming Voice will probably be a little bit stronger as well. It's going to give you that rage boost whenever you need it. And for overall talent choices, it's probably going to really work well with the Bolster and Anger Management choices, so Booming Voice is probably a little bit ahead of Devastator in my opinion, and especially because of the threat nerf on tanks as well, it's going to really help with them AoE packs, because it's going to put a 15% damage increase around you when you're tanking big AoE pulls. So that's another good reason to pick up Booming Voice, as well as, like I've said, the synergy between the other talents that you're going to be picking. And finally in tier 7 we have Anger Management returning, Heavy Repercussions, and Ravager. Now the choices on this tier will be between Anger Management and Heavy Repercussions. Obviously Anger Management's going to synergize with Bolster and Booming Voice if you pick them. However, Heavy Repercussions is also extremely strong, as it has been in the past, especially in the earlier tiers. It's going to increase your shield block duration, and it's also going to increase your shield damage. So very strong. However, the synergy Anger Management has with Booming Voice and Bolster is just really overpowered, especially with how strong Bolster is. So you're probably going to want to go with Anger Management for the most part, but Heavy Repercussions is also extremely strong, so don't fob that talent off just yet. So for an overall talent look, you probably want to go with Into the Fray, Bounding Stride or Crackling Thunder, Unstoppable Force, Bolster, Rumbling Earth, Booming Voice, and Anger Management. But obviously there'll be certain situations where you're probably going to be taking Punish, and you're probably going to be taking Heavy Repercussions and Devastator as well, so just keep them in mind. And finally, what are my overall impressions with the Protection Warrior? It's pretty much, guys, for me, more of the same. I really think they need to reconsider that Ignore Pains on the GCD, and I really hate that defensive abilities like Demo Shout were also on the GCD. It's a real pain in the ass. Luckily though, shield block's not on the GCD as well as shield wall, so you do have that to like keep you alive if you like GCD locks or something, so that's kind of good. I'm also glad that they brought intervene back off the GCD, because if that was on the GCD, then pretty much I'm pretty sure a lot of warriors would have just left the class altogether, because that's one of the kind of fun things you can do is like jumping around between mobs and stuff, so that's a plus. But yeah, I still think the warrior needs a few little tweaks for me to really consider maining it. But overall, I'd say the warrior's probably mid of the pack for tanks on the BFA beta at the moment, so there won't be anything too special, but again, there won't be anything super overpowered like you saw at the beginning of Legion, where you could just spam your ignore pains and get a stupid amount of shielding. Anyway guys, that's pretty much it for my Protection Warrior preview / guide. My next guide is probably going to be either the Monk or the Demon Hunter, but we'll see. Thanks for watching my videos and thanks for the support. Please like, comment and subscribe for more videos and guides.